Mixed martial arts. Mixed martial arts. How do we like our martial arts? We like them mixed! Yeah!
Let's go, everybody. That's the sound of a fight night taking place outside of the UFC Apex. That's right. The UFC is back in the Lone Star State for UFC San Antonio, which goes down tomorrow. Early start time, 7 p.m. main card. Prelims were supposed to start at 4 p.m. Eastern. Now they're going to start at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. We lost 2 fights. We're down to 11 total, and it's going to be capped off by the 2 men you see in that image right there. Marlon Vera versus Cory Sandhagen. Massive fight in this wild and crazy Bantamweight division as we welcome you to the UFC San Antonio live preview show here on MMAfighting.com. I am Mike Heck. We have José Youngs joining us from beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. There he is.
It's very warm.
And also joining us, my best friend, the P to the OP, the Prince of Positivity, Mr. Alexander K. Lee. Hi, AK.
Hi, let's talk about UFC San Antonio, guys.
Okay. We will do that. So
It's not sometimes I keep it simple. You know, sometimes I was like, should I say something fancy? And I'm like, let's just call it like it is. Let's call it like it is.
What do you consider? What would you say that would be quote unquote fancy?
You know, sometimes I can be a little flowery with my introductions. I would say something like a couple of weeks ago. I've been like, "Oh, UFC Las Vegas, still in Las Vegas, but out of the Apex, and we've got Merab Dvalishvili and Petr Yan fighting for what is sure to be a title shot." And I could have said the same thing today, of course, because as we know, Marlon Vera and Cory Sandhagen, surely whoever wins on Saturday is guaranteed a title shot, right, guys?
Yes, we will certainly talk about the stakes of this fight and what it all means. But AK, I'm curious, and I don't know if this is even a fair time to even ask the gymnastics score question, because like I just feel like there's a lot of heavy lifting going on with this main event. Yeah, there's some names on this card. There's some interesting matchups on paper if you actually dive deep into it, but this is not a star power filled card, is it?
I'd like to answer Joseph Boza's comment right away. This is a great card that isn't getting the love that it deserves, I think. No, it's fine. No, it's an okay card that's getting, I think, what it deserves. It's an okay card with a phenomenal main event. There are some, I think the main card actually isn't bad at all. I don't think the main card's bad at all. So I'm going to give it, again, let's be generous here, guys. Remember, degree of difficulty is best case scenario if everything is good. Highlight reel finishes, quality back and forth fights, and if the main event delivers. So this main event has got to deliver. That means no weird, freaky injury or something like that. Or again, outside of an injury, I can't imagine how this fight could be boring in any way. 8.2.
8.2. Okay, I think that's a pretty fair. I think it's a pretty fair and generous score. Yeah, and I think the main event gives it probably like an entire point because it's that good, Jose. And listen, you are a resident fan of high level martial arts competitions. I mean, you are the president of the high level martial arts competition fan club, and we're at a division that more often than not puts out high level competition bouts. And we got a 5-rounder here between Cory Sandhagen and Marlon Vera, 2 completely different styles, 2 very, very good fighters, and 2 guys that are colliding at a very interesting time in this division's history for the UFC, where things are kind of in shambles right now with so many contenders. We get a title fight between Aljamain Sterling, who may have a foot kind of out of the divisional door to make room for Merab Dvalishvili. Just got a big win over Petr Yan. Marlon Vera's been on a roll. Cory Sandhagen has been really, really good. He's been in some really good fights. And I feel like me and Casey were talking about this earlier. This guy's so good that we feel like he still hasn't tapped into his full potential yet. It hasn't fully clicked for him. So I feel like the timing of this fight is just at an incredible time, and that it's happening in front of a crowd in San Antonio. So your thoughts on this fight between Marlon Vera and Cory Sandhagen, because it is a top-notch main event.
Yeah, the bantamweight division, which I consider to be the second best division in MMA, it's going through the complete opposite of what the lightweight division is, where we're actually getting these fights that we want. Like a couple weeks ago, we got Merab Yan. Now, obviously, we get Sandhagen and Marlon Vera. Obviously, the Cejudo Aljamain fight, the kind of Cejudo coming back through a wrench into a lot of the title contention, the title picture. But like, regardless of how you feel about Henry or Aljamain, that fight still rules. So we're still getting high-level fights at an opportune time, which is we can't really say for the welterweight or the lightweight division, which many people consider to be the other two premier divisions. So yeah, everything about this fight absolutely rules. I'm going to sound like I did that when we broke down Cory Sandhagen versus TJ Dillashaw, or when we broke down Petr Yan versus Merab Dvalishvili, like pretty much, or like Sean O'Malley versus Petr Yan. Like anytime you get a top 5 bantamweight versus a top 5 bantamweight, just I pray to God it's a main event, or at least one of those weird things where the UFC just makes a 5-round co-main event. Because like you said, these are two very polar opposite individuals in terms of fighting style, but at the same time, two incredibly violent individuals. This is a perfect main event. This is a perfect main event for San Antonio. This is a perfect main event for the era of this bantamweight division, what it's going through right now. It checks all the boxes, and if anyone on this site or any other site or fan complains about something about this main event, anything at all, you're just I don't want to get demonetized, but you're just an idiot because you're just reaching for things to complain about at this point, because we complain about fights that we want, and then when we get them, we just kind of dig up something else to complain about that holds no water. This fight rules. Let's stop complaining about stuff and just enjoy Marlon Vera versus Cory Sandhagen, because again, this fight checks everybody. This is the potential is a 40 out of 10 if we're just making things up at this point, because that's my rules. So 40 out of 10 potential, and will probably deliver at least a 40 out of 10. I love this fight.
I love it too. AK, here's the thing about Cory Sandhagen, and maybe you don't like this, but he has the potential every time he gets in there, especially from a striking standpoint, to mix the martial arts. He mixes the martial arts very, very well. Marlon Vera doesn't really need to mix the martial arts very well. He can if he wants to, but he's been winning a lot of his fights with patience, durability, and just absolute game-changing power. When his strikes land, boy, do they matter. Talk about this fight, break it down. What are some of the storylines, some of the intangibles that you were looking at for this high-level potential 25-minute battle between these two contenders?
First, I want to say I'm glad that Jose brought the positivity to it, because yeah, we do tend to nitpick, and I've said on multiple occasions, like the be all end all like storyline of every main event shouldn't necessarily be, well, what does this mean for the title picture? And it should not on Saturday either. Like this fight is absolutely incredible. It's great that we're getting it. It's a little frustrating just because it felt like not too long ago there was a through line for like, okay, O'Malley beats Yan. There you go. O'Malley's helping him to fight Sterling. And then, one of these other bantamweights, they're going to be matched up. We're going to get a contender out of there. And then, Vera Sandhagen gets booked, and we're like, boom, there you go. There's your logical, one of these guys gets a title shot. And then the Cejudo thing happens and screws everything up. But yeah, again, it doesn't really matter. The fight's going to happen. It's going to be great. Whatever happens after is not going to diminish its greatness. Just like if, just last week, Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev, maybe neither of those guys, that fight doesn't directly lead to one of those guys getting a title shot in the next, 6, 7, 8 months. And it doesn't matter, because that fight was friggin' amazing. Who cares whether, if it hurts Fiziev's, standing in the rankings, if Justin Gaethje's, still 1 or 2 fights away, it doesn't really matter. It's still great. So I do like that stance on it. The matchup itself is so tough to call because, and again, for the reasons that we just mentioned, like this division is so strong. We do the rankings every month, Mike, and it's funny because we have to refer to fighters in every division. Like this person's like a top 10 fighter in this division, top 10 this fighter. Like being a top 10 fighter at bantamweight, it's very different than being top 10 in, say, light heavyweight. It's crazy the quality of competition that there is. So honestly, I'm working on predictions as we speak. I'm having a lot of trouble breaking this one down just because I feel like there's so many ways it could go. I'll give my official prediction in a second, but I do like, as you said, Mike, I do like Sandhagen's ability to mix it up a bit more. I think he has just as much sort of one-shot power as Marlon Vera, but both guys also have the ability to sort of break you down. They're not sluggers. They can certainly, get into back and forth battles. We've seen that with both guys. Like, their toughness is not in question. Sandhagen's losses to Jan and the loss to Dillashaw, some people didn't view it that way. You saw him dig down deep. You saw him find that extra gear. So he's definitely a guy who can take a hit. And same with Marlon. We've seen him in some sick battles too. Even though he can also be he can be a fast finisher. Maybe he hasn't had a fast finish recently, but we know he can sort of break you down and put you away. So I'd be very surprised if this one ends in the first couple of rounds. Again, both guys great finishers, but also really tough, really tactical. I'd be very surprised if it ends in the first couple of rounds, but I'll also be very surprised, Mike, if it goes the distance. So I'll say that for now, for sort of tease the prediction. Yeah.
A little bit of a cliffhanger. Two very durable fighters. Marlon Vera never finished. Cory Sandhagen only finished once by Aljamain Sterling by submission in one of those crazy fights. So, Jose, the comparison I get with this fight, and I've been getting it a lot the last couple of weeks, is does this remind us of Vera versus Font? And obviously, Font and Sandhagen are two totally different guys. Sandhagen obviously mixes things up a little more. He's got a little more tools with the striking, mix things up a little different, but the movement, kind of the volume persona that both guys bring to the table, I understand it. And a lot of the question is, can Marlon Vera land enough to have the more significant moments in rounds that even if he's doubled up on strikes, can he steal rounds with his ability to just change the game with one big shot, which he did against Rob a lot. If you look at the statistics in the Font fight, Font outlanded Vera by a lot in pretty much every single round, but Vera had those game-changing moments pretty much consistently throughout by landing one big shot and dropping Font or dropping him multiple times in rounds. Is that one of the big questions you have in this fight? Like, can Vera steal rounds with his power, or do you have different intangible questions with this fight? You're muted.
That was weird. Can you hear me now? Well, the questions I have for this fight, I think both fighters have had to evolve as fighters, and obviously fighters evolve over time. But I think these two gentlemen, once you get to the top, the upper echelon of any division, you have to add more tools. You can't just rely on what got you to the dance, because that top 1% of the top 1%, you can't make a mistake. And Marlon Vera, yeah, he's on this long win streak, or he's on an impressive win streak, and he lost to Jose Aldo, but who hasn't lost to Jose Aldo? But he's one of those fighters that seems to be losing until he's not. And like he did, I had him down against Dominic Cruz. I had him losing to Frankie Edgar. And then he just lands that one punch, and then your face turns off, and then he wins. And that is a skill unto itself that he can, survive. Not survive is the wrong word. He can stay in a fight and not look like he's being overwhelmed and stay patient, and then just kind of punch a hole through your chest with a shotgun. Cory Sandhagen, on the other hand, seems to be running forward the entire time with these dynamic movements. And he himself said that he had to change up a little bit rather than just go for the kill all of the time, because that, when he did that against TJ Dillashaw, kind of bit him in the ass, because TJ Dillashaw is one of those top 1% of the top 1% that can take advantage of your mistakes. Obviously, the Petr Yan fight, which I think is one of the better fights of the last 5 years, that's the best Petr Yan we've seen ever. I think that Petr Yan is the best bantamweight I've ever seen. Obviously, that win, like that loss to Petr Yan, I don't know how well that's aged, but then when he came back in Song Yadong, we kind of saw a different Cory Sandhagen. He was much more methodical, and he filleted Song Yadong from the outside, and then he didn't take those massive risks that he did against TJ Dillashaw. And sometimes those massive risks pay off, like when he landed the flying knee against Frankie Edgar and just walked away as Frankie Edgar kind of timbered to the canvas. So I want to see if both men continue to change and evolve. And essentially what on paper, if you look at and if you watch tape, the first person that makes a mistake and leaves an opening will probably, their face isn't going to look the same after this fight. Like Song Yadong doesn't look the same. For like TJ Dillashaw didn't look the same. He tore his knee up against Cory Sandhagen. Dominic Cruz's face got, like, his nose was on the other side of his body. We saw the photo of Frank Edgar when he got front kicked by Marlon Vera. So first person to make a mistake, It's not going to be a good thing. Both of these men have dynamic power in every limb. I'd be curious if this fight hits the canvas, because I think Marlon Vera has incredibly underrated jiu-jitsu, and he's very, very, very dangerous off his back with his elbows. And Cory Sandhagen is incredibly long and is one of those guys that just is constantly hunting submissions on the canvas. Even if he doesn't get them, it's the threat of them being there. He's the second he touches the ground, he's just kind of moving immediately. It didn't work out for him against Aljamain, but no one was beating Aljamain Sterling that night because of the chip on his shoulder. First person to make a mistake, it's going to be a bad night. I still can't decide who's going to win. I have an idea, but that's the biggest question I have. Who makes the first mistake?
Man, that's a great way of looking at this. AK, over under 1.5 takedown attempts in this fight, and why?
I'll go over. I think some of them might be, reactive. Some of them might just be in middle of an exchange. Someone's getting blasted. You kind of throw one in there just to change the tempo, just to mix up the pace. Not necessarily because one of the fighters is looking to grind it out. So again, that's certainly an option. Both guys are pretty well rounded, even though of course they favor the stand up. I'd be surprised. I'd be really surprised if it was either guy's game plan to kind of go in there, like work against the fence, clinch up, go for trips, things like that. It'd be cool to see. I know I'm very publicly against the mixing of the martial arts, but again, these are two of the best fighters in the world, and if they want to show off their full skill set, I'm never going to argue against that. Like, I think I'm more against mixing the martial arts when people are bad at mixing the martial arts. Let's make that clear. So I generally take a hard stance against it. But these guys are well rounded. So I'll go over, but not not in the sense that like it'll be one guy going out of their way to like sort of wrestle their way to a win. But yeah, I think you're going to see all kinds of things in this fight, not just striking. So I'll go over, maybe not way over, but I'll go over.
The stakes in this fight are really fascinating because we broke down kind of what the top of this division looks like right now. We got Aljo's the champ fighting Cejudo. Merab on our rankings, the number 2 guy, basically the number 1 guy outside of the champion. And he's not going to fight Aljamain Sterling right now. Cejudo wins. Maybe they do that. We got Sean O'Malley out there right now. And then this fight, we've had circled on our bantamweight calendars for a long time, Jose. So what's at stake here? A lot of people feel like Marlon has more to gain and Cory has more to lose, if that makes sense, just because of what the recent resumes look like. Marlon's on a row, four wins in a row. Sandhagen's coming off of a good win, but lost to Petr Yan, has the loss to Aljamain Sterling as well. What is at stake here? Who needs this one more? Who has more to gain? Who has more to lose? What do you think?
I think Cory has slightly more to lose just because of, like you said, the wins and losses and who he's lost to. But it's this losing to Marlon Vera in 2023, your stock is not going to fall that dramatically, especially if it's one of these wars that we've seen Cory Sandhagen in the past. I think both of them have the same to gain, and both of them have Sean O'Malley waiting for them. Hopefully. Obviously, the last 7 days in the UFC has just, stamped what we already knew, and that wins and losses don't particularly matter in the UFC or mixed martial arts. But if Aljamain Sterling is indeed moving up to featherweight, if he does beat Henry Cejudo, or if Aljamain Sterling wins or Henry Cejudo wins and then calls out Sean O'Malley, that's most likely the fight. Obviously, I think no one would have complained if Sean O'Malley was fighting Aljamain Sterling in Newark anyway instead of Henry Cejudo. But Cory Sandhagen did an interview, obviously, with our own Damon Martin. He himself said, like, why wouldn't the UFC want to make that fight if Cory Sandhagen wins and Sean O'Malley wins and Aljamain Sterling wins and Aljamain still wants to fight Sean O'Malley, but he's like, this weight cut sucks. I just can't do it anymore. That's a wrap. I vacate the belt. I'm moving up to 145. The winner of this versus Sean O'Malley for a vacant belt, also, that just makes it bigger. Selfishly, that's what I want, but I just don't know. This bantamweight division is so fantastic. Everyone is kind of pushing each other down and pulling themselves up along the way. I don't know. I don't know. Like realistically, we should be fighting Sean O'Malley or the belt, but I don't know. Like for all I know, Merab fights Umar. They announced Merab fights Umar, and then Umar melts Merab, and then why wouldn't you give the title shot to Umar Nurmagomedov? So I don't know, and that's the state of the bantamweight division now. That's the state of a lot of divisions right now. There's really no division out there outside of heavyweight where it's like, yeah, clear, number one contender. I guess light heavyweight too, but like I don't know. I don't know. That's the answer. That's not a good answer, but I think that's what everyone like. It's hard to look down the line in the UFC because nothing makes sense anymore.
At 135, 100%. What do you think, AK? What if Marlon Vera? Because I feel like Vera does have more to gain here. I feel like he's on the longer streak. I feel like a lot of people have, like, I think I've had Vera ranked the highest amongst all of us for a while. But I think, if he beats Cory Sandhagen, I think people will sort of catch up to that. But if he wins, it's 5 in a row. He's getting over in a big way with these performances and things that he has to say. And he's been pretty nonchalant and pretty indifferent about the whole title conversation. He understands like why Cejudo's getting a title fight. It's not necessarily because of merit. This is what the UFC, at least in his mind, thinks will sell better. And he's not complaining about it. It is what it is. So what is at stake here for these two guys?
See, that's what kills me about Cheeto, though, is because, listen, I'm a huge fan of the guy. I think most of us have been fans of his since his early days in the UFC. If anyone watched The Ultimate Fighter Latin America, he was one of the standouts from that season. And I like the attitude of, if I go in, I do my work, keep putting on great fights, keep picking up bonus checks, the UFC will eventually notice me and I'll get my title shot. But it's not how it works. Like, we know it's not how it works. I was just listening to his media day today, and he said sometimes you chase something and it makes it go further away. And philosophically, I kind of get what he's saying. But in the UFC, like, that's actually not the case. In the UFC, as we know, you've got to pipe up. The guys who get opportunities are the guys who pipe up and say they want something. There's much more evidence. I mean, we've certainly had guys who have gone on win streaks and called for big fights and not gotten it. Bilal Muhammad is a case of that. He's been chasing it. He's been doing both. He's been both chasing after his opportunity, and he's been putting in the work, and somehow neither path has led him to a title shot. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But with Cheeto, he just got skipped over for, again, Henry Cejudo, for example, a guy who has done nothing but talk for the last few years, and only ramped up the comeback talk recently. And guess what? Now he's back in the UFC title shot. We just saw Colby Covington come back. He actually disappeared for a year. Wasn't even talking, but then spends one weekend talking, makes weight once. Now he's getting a title shot. So while TJ Dillashaw getting the title shot that we all hated him getting that title shot against Aljo. Again, he won that fight. He gets a year off because he was injured, but never at that point did TJ say like, well, I'm okay with not getting the title shot. He was pretty clear, keeping himself in that number one contender talk. So it's so admirable and so honorable for Cheeto Vera to be a good company man and say, I'm just going to keep putting on my hard hat, and as long as the checks keep coming, I'm happy, and that's great. I think he's won a lot of bonuses. He's very happy. Seems to be making a good living. But if he's really serious about chasing that title shot, God, I would love to see him make a little bit more of a stir. Because again, we know 4, 5, 6, 7 wins in a row, it doesn't mean anything to the UFC. You actually do have to like put your foot forward and say, I want that title shot. And you still might not get it, but you have to let them know you want it. They are not in the business of just handing it out based on like, well, let's look at the rankings, who's in a win streak. This person deserves it. I hate to use the D word, but yes, he deserves it. He deserves a title shot. So if we're talking about who has more to gain and more to lose, it almost doesn't even have to, it has just as much to do, not only with who wins the fight, but what they do after. Because if Cheeto wins and keeps the same song and dance of hey, whatever the UFC wants to bring me, I'm happy about it. He's not fighting for a title this year. I'll say it right now. He could knock out Cory Sandhagen, and if he does the same thing, it's like, well, whatever happens next, give me O'Malley or give me whoever next is fine. He's not fighting for the title this year, and that sucks because a win on Saturday if he's healthy, he should be guaranteed a title shot by the end of the year, and I'm very, very afraid that that's not going to happen.
Current betting lines, according to our friends at DraftKings, I think they're pretty spot on, almost perfect. Cory Sandhagen -165, the comeback on Marlon Vera +140. I guess it's time to get off the fence in this very, very close fight. So, Jose, we'll begin with you. Have you landed on a side here?
I'm going to pick Cory Sandhagen. I have no idea how it's going to happen, but like I said, I think Marlon Vera lately has like, fair play to him. He's won fights, but like I said, he's won fights that was losing until he wasn't. Fighters like Jose Aldo and Cory Sandhagen don't let you pull that out of your back pocket. I'm not saying Dominic Cruz and Frank Edgar aren't high level fighters, but at their point in their careers, they're not gonna just melt you with a punch, or they're not just gonna like punish you like Jose Aldo does. Because that was a 3-round fight, if I remember correctly. So, like, 3-round fight, Jose Aldo, and it's predominantly striking fight. Unless your name is Marlon Moraes, you're probably not going to lose that fight. And I lose that term lose loosely because I think we all scored that fight for Jose Aldo. I think Cory Sandhagen in a 5-round fight, if Marlon Vera makes one mistake, Cory Sandhagen's going to make him pay for it. And I don't think he's a fighter that will give an opening to Marlon Vera to pull out one of these Hail Mary haymakers or head kicks that he lands on Frank Edgar and Dominic Cruz. I got Cory Sandhagen. I don't know how he's going to win. I think it's going to be an incredibly competitive fight. I'm not picking Cory Sandhagen to blow him out of the waters. I think both men, this is going to be one of those fights, and it's going to sound like a cop-out that both of their stocks will rise. Neither one falls that too far in the rankings, and I don't think either falls in the eyes of the fans or the UFC. But at the end of the day, we do need a winner, and I say that because we've seen weirder things where draws and fighters not making the cage. We need a winner, so I'm picking Cory Sandhagen, but I'm not going to pick Hal because I'm not going to put that evil into the world.
AK, you're predicting a finish. Who gets it before the final horn?
Yeah. First of all, I agree with Jose that I don't think either guy can be set back too much with a loss. I know Cory Sandhagen's resume will look a little bit worse than Marlon Vera's. It'll be 3 losses in his past 4 fights, but again, it'll be the split against TJ, which many people thought Cory won, stepping in on short notice to fight Petr Yan in one of the best fights in recent memory, and then a win over Song Yadong. So even if he loses, those 3 losses, you can't really hold them against him that much. I don't think the matchmakers will either. It'll be a bit of a climb back to the top, but again, he's only 30. So is Cheeto. They're both only 30. He has a lot of time to sort of get back up there, keep putting on exciting fights, getting bonuses, and wait for that whatever jumble at the top of the division to clear up. So I am leaning towards Cheeto Vera to win. Again, I don't think this is any sort of indictment of Cory Sandhagen's recent performances or how he'll perform on Saturday. We have to pick somebody. And I'll go with Vera I don't think this will go the distance. So I'll go late finish, something in the 4th round. I think he's just going to catch Sandhagen with something he's been setting up for like 3 rounds. Like both guys will be damaging each other for the first 3 rounds for sure. But I think Marlon Vera will be setting something up, finally really find it in the 4th, put Cory Sandhagen down, finish by TKO, not like a stone cold knockout, but just kind of hurt him, and just whoever the referee is there is going to give Cory Sandhagen all the time in the world to recover. But I think once Cheeto smells his blood, he'll put this one away. So I'll go Vera by 4th round, KO TKO.
So tough to call. I'm going Marlon Vera. Not confident in it, but again, this is not the same as the Rob Font fight, but I do feel like Vera can have those moments that can change the course of rounds, and he could do that at any point. He could be losing 4 minutes of a round and then land a big shot and turn things around. And if you let Marlon Vera hang around too long, he's going to land some shots. He's just going to. So I'm going to pick him to win a very, very close decision. But I'll tell you what, AK, obviously if Vera gets a finish, that's huge. If either guy gets a finish in this fight, I think it's going to have a gigantic impact on this division, because we've seen sort of how Dana White talks about Merab Dvalishvili. You could be impressed by his performances and stuff. He's not in the great graces of the UFC. They haven't really put him over in a big way. And if one of these guys goes out and finishes the other, that is going to be pretty friggin' impressive, especially if Cory Sandhagen finishes Marlon Vera, who's never been finished before. It's such a good fight. I'm torn. Coin flip. I'm going with the dog, Marlon Vera, to eke out a decision in a fight that I think is going to make a lot of top 5 lists for fight of the year. I'm not confident in that fight, in this fight being that great. So that's the main event. We have the return of Holly Holm in the co-main event against Yana Santos. So a women's bantamweight fight. So that's good to see, since I think we only had like 13 or 14 total women's bantamweight fights in 2022. Nate Landwehr is back, coming off of that incredible fight with David Onama. He's fighting Austin Lingo. Andrea Lee, Maycee Barber, Alex Perez, Manel Kopp, and the main card opens with Chidi and Njokuani versus Albert Duraev. So, Jose, I'll begin with you. Outside of the main event, which one of these main card fights fascinates you the most? Which one has you giddy?
I mean, they all do. They all do. I mean, one of like Perez and Kopp probably has the most. Well, Holly and Yana probably has more title implications. I'll say Nate Landwehr, Ostalingo, solely because I was in the building when Nate Landwehr fought David Onama, and I have never in my life felt an arena shake like it did when they were fighting, to the point where I wasn't cage side because I was. If anyone's been to San Diego, the arena is very old, to the point where when you walk in, they have a mural of Jimi Hendrix playing there. That's how old that arena is. And I'm pretty sure they have the same chairs from that same concert where they're all made of wood. And then, so the media room is underneath the seats. So the people are walking above you in their seats. And during that fight, they were stomping the ground and the entire building was shaking. And if you go back and watch our post-fight interviews and scrums from that UFC San Diego card, there were fighters that were just like, holy crap, what's happening right now? Like during their interviews, I think Gerald Mearshart was the big one where he like had to stop because everything in the room was shaking. So if there's a fighter that literally, almost demolishes an entire building during a fight, I'm going to be excited about their next fight. So yeah, Nate Landwehr, I'm very, very excited for. Obviously, Ostalingo is a very durable fighter. So I expect, like, if there was, because I said the same thing about Cruz and Marlon, like there's just fights that are kind of, it's not fun to pick them for fight of the night because it's like any Justin Gaethje fight, like, oh, what's fight of the night? Like, it's just a boring pick. Saying Marlon Vera, Cory Sandhagen win fight of the night is a boring pick, but if I had to pick a dark horse for fight of the night, it's probably anything with Nate Landwehr in it. So I'm going to pick that fight.
It's a pretty safe bet right there. AK, what say you? Are you looking at that fight as well, or is there something? I think I'd already go with this.
Mike, I love Nate the Train, man. I love Nate the Train. This guy. This is the human embodiment of Tennessee facing a Texas boy. So this is good. You're going to have the crowd's going to be super, super invested in this fight. Like, that's what you need. I saw someone asking in the comments a fair question earlier, like, oh, there's no big stars from Texas in this card. And I'm like, that's okay. That's like when you're going to a place like San Antonio, you don't necessarily need, like, it'd be cool if you could have like a big Texas name in the main event, but you don't need it. You want these kind of people who are from the area. Who you put them on the main card, and Andrea Lee's on there as well. Daniel Pineda is closing out the prelims. These are good spots. You don't necessarily need that huge name. So you throw someone in there who's from the area against a guy like Nate Landwehr, who is completely insane. And people forget Ostalingo, his UFC career has been kind of like inauspicious. Before he came to the UFC, he was like annihilating people. It's fine. I know what you guys want to say. Regional fights, whatever. What do they mean? But this guy was his 3 fights before the UFC: 13-second knockout, 25-second submission, 25-second knockout. He had such a good pre-UFC highlight reel. It was so much fun to watch, and I think we're gonna see that come back on Saturday. So the only reason not to pick it as like the standout fight to watch is because it might not go past the first round. I think both guys are just gonna go in there like smashing each other, which is fantastic. But listen, for me, that's the real co-main event. That's almost the real main event. It's such a fun card. I'm glad they put together. I'm glad they were able to keep Nate Landwehr on this card. Him and Alex Caceres also been super fun, but in a different way. I think this will just be like nonstop 0 to like 100, and I'm just super pumped about it.
I didn't realize Ostalingo had been out for 18 months. I didn't realize it's been that long since he fought. Yeah, he didn't fight at all in 2022. So. Yeah, maybe he's just he's got a little anger to let out, and Nate Landwehr will certainly pick up the pace enough to get that out of you. Andrea Lee, Maycee Barber is an interesting fight. I think a lot of people are just not giving Andrea much of a chance in this fight, and these are the types of fights that Andrea does actually really well in. That, stylistically may not look great. Andrea's very good on the ground. She didn't look great in her last fight, but she's had some really good performances, and being able to fight in Texas, I think this is going to be a fun fight. It's going to be a fun one. And Alex Perez, Manel Kape, golly, it's just going to be nice to see Alex Perez actually step into an octagon. That guy's had a hard time getting in there. Manel Kape is on the cusp.
Don't say that. Don't say that. You can't say that with Alex Perez.
I'm knocking.
I was like, you're poking Jose right now. You're poking him right now with these comments.
Especially with Alex Perez. He's burned me too many times.
Yes.
And Manel Kape fights. And Manel Kape fights. It seems like both of these men just can't get into the octagon for both their own faults and their opponent.
They're canceling each other out, though.
Dude, we went through this with Matt Schnell and Alex Perez were the same thing. It just the flyweight division, you can't guarantee anyone shows up.
Well, let's hope they both show up. And if they do, that fight is going to be fun. That is going to be a good one. And then Chidi and Jokwani and Albert Juraev are just going to beat the hell out of each other. So that will be a fun way to kick off this main card. Low-key banger, Jose? Any prelim low-key banger that you got your eye on?
Ooh, low-key banger. Let me pull it up again. Low-key banger. I mean, Stephen Ocho Peterson is a kind of a psycho. So is Daniel Pineda. I mean, there's a lot of crazy men on these prelim cards. I low-key like CJ Vergara because he wore the Doctor Strange eye around his neck after his win in Phoenix. Stephen Peterson has some pretty horrendous tattoos.
Superman.
So I love that. Yeah, we'll go with that. I don't know, man. There's a lot. I mean, I'll say Daniel Pineda because he's been. How long has that cat been fighting? I feel like that every time. Like he's been he's left and he's. What promotion hasn't Daniel Pineda fought at? That's a better question. Like that dude has fought in like every promotion. Yeah, he hasn't been in Fight Circus, and I say this not overly confident. I am assuming he fought in the PFL.
He did.
Oh, he definitely.
He almost went to the finals, and then. But
that's
then
right. That's right. Yeah, and he obviously fought in LFC, and he obviously fought in. He definitely fought in Bellator. I know that, and obviously the UFC. So he's fought in every promotion. So I'll say Daniel Pineda because that dude is fun. Just watch that guy fight. He deserves eyeballs.
AK.
I'll just say I don't want to steal from No Bets Barred, but this is one, and I also don't tell people to gamble on MMA. I always say never gamble. But if you like flyweight unders, let me tell you something. These first two fights, I am almost. I mean, if you want to be safe, you go under 2.5, fine. But if you want to be a real man and trust in the flyweight under magic, I'm almost so confident that CJ Vergara and Daniel Da Silva or Daniel Lacerda and Victor Altamirano and Benicio Salvador, I don't think either of those fights make it past the midway point of the second round. Alex Perez, Manel Kape is a little bit trickier for sure. Again, once you get to the higher level, we're talking about 2 top 10 flyweights. It's a little bit trickier to predict that one's going to put the other guy away. So I wouldn't necessarily go all in on that. But one of these, I think both of these preliminary flyweight unders are going to hit. I'll be very surprised if they don't. I got a little too jumpy last week. I will say I put some money on Makayev doing it, and now we know Makayev is inside the distance, but not before the middle of the second round. So it's just not how he does things. So, but other than that, flyweight unders going very strong in 2023. I'm happy to promote it for the No Bets Barred boys, Jen Mishu and Connor Burks. So. Definitely on the prelims, maybe leave the Perez Cap fight alone. Just enjoy that one for what it is. But if you want to sprinkle $5 on, just make things interesting for yourself. Those first 2 flyweights bouts, I think they're both any finishes and both before the midway point of the fight.
Yeah, this is a card that is probably gonna have a lot of finishes on it.
And I while AK was talking, I looked up Daniel Pineda to see if there were any other promotions he's fought at. I was right. When I was kind of half joking that he's fought at every single promotion, this cat fought in Elite XC back in the day. So that just tells you how long he's been. And at welterweight. And he has two different rematches. One, like he fought Chaz Skelly twice before the UFC, and he fought Johnny Bedford twice before the UFC. So this cat has been around for a long time.
He has. It's absolutely insane. Now I'm looking at it right now. He fought at Bellator 6? Holy shit.
Yeah, man. He fought on UFC on FX.
Oh, yeah.
FX1, FX2, both. He's
he fought on the first, I know for a fact, he fought on the first ever UFC on Fox Sports card. The Chael Sonnen Shogun fight, I believe he fought Diego Brandao on that card.
I think you're correct.
And you want to hear something weird? Somehow, 44 pro fights has never won by decision.
Jesus Christ! I didn't even look at that.
I don't know how that's possible. He's never won a decision.
He's lost 5 though.
He's lost 5. That's has never won by decision.
That is bananas.
That's crazy.
Wow. All right, well, let's go to the peeps. Maybe they have some more fascinating Daniel Pineda trivia questions or some tidbits for us. Hello, Casey. How's it going?
Doing wonderful, thank you. You know what's weird about the Daniel Pineda, the Elite XC fight? I was there. I was working for Elite XC at the time. Yeah, Renegade. That was Kimbo's. That was Kimbo's debut, MMA debut, I think. Which the crazy part is, like, I've seen so many freaking fights. That means I was there. I shot footage of him backstage. Why he lost fights, so I didn't interview him afterwards. But I was probably cage side for his fight. I have zero memory of it. Zero. So I'm like, whoa.
That was the famous "Don't Be Scared, Homie" fight, right? Fight card.
No. That one set it up though. That one set it up because that was when KJ
Nick Diaz was the main. KJ News beat Nick Diaz by doctor stoppage, right? Oh yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and then
I get what you're saying.
But that was the fight when Nick Diaz when he left the cage, he left the ring. He slapped the cameraman's camera in the backstage. So he used that footage all the time. The camera going whoa.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. All right, to the questions. Oh, by the way, AK, I really like this main card. I think this is a great main card.
It's a strong main card. It's a strong main card.
Especially ranking-wise, outside of Landwehr Lingo, we have every fighter on the only rankings that matter in our top 15.
Not Njokuani and Daraya. No, it's a 6-fight main card. So
6-fight main card. Okay. That's a 6-fight main card. That's not a real thing. 5-fight main card.
Top 5. You're talking about the top 5 fights of the main card. If this were a normal main card, sure.
Yeah. And Landwehr Lingo obviously is just going to be a super exciting fight. So I have no issue with it being placed right there. But ranking wise, this is a very stacked fight night card, honestly. But yeah. Cool. To the questions.
Could Andrea versus Maycee be the fight of the night? I could see both ladies bringing it. Now we have a third UFC Women's Flyweight champion ever in Alexa Grasso. Do you think Andrea Lee versus Maycee Barber could be fight of the night, AK? I mean,
on this
you never
card,
know.
It's certainly, again, especially if I'm correct and that Nate Landwehr Lingo ends quickly, that might be more of a performance on the night thing. But I am thinking the main event goes past the third round. I think if it goes past the third round and it's as expected, like the action is as expected, I don't know how that's not going to win fight of the night, the main event. Andrea Lee, I just had to check as I saw this question, does have one fight of the night a long time ago, May 2018 against Veronica Macedo, now Veronica Hardy. Other than that, I mean, she's had some. I don't know. I don't know. Nah. I don't want to say that she has.
Do you remember that? I remember that fight. Do you remember that card? I remember that exact card. That was Kamaru Usman, Damian Maia, and I'm pretty sure it was in Chile. And that fight card was not good, so that just happens to be the best fight on a very lackluster card.
Yeah. That sounds.
So as far as I'm concerned, both women have 0 fight of the nights.
Yeah, I will say I don't know. I don't consider I don't think Andrea Lee's a boring fighter, but I do think most of her decision fights are they're good, they're entertaining, but not. I think there's a reason she hasn't won the fight of the night. I don't know if her fights have ever kind of hit that next level of like excitement. Maybe I'm wrong. It's if the question is it possible? Sure. It wouldn't be my again, if we're picking like the top 3 candidates, probably wouldn't be in the top 3. Probably again, main event, Landwehr Lingo, Perez Cop, even Njokuani Drive could be a little wild. Daniel Pineda's fighting, so it'd be tough. It'd be tough to put it up there.
If Lee Barber is fight of the night, sorry.
No, I was saying Maycee Barber's a pretty sizable favorite, bigger than I thought she'd be. Minus 260.
I was kind of surprised on that too. But
what's Topology saying?
Oh, it's very heavily in favor of Barber.
83% Barber.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, that was shocking. I didn't. I was like, whoa.
Don't get it.
Disrespect.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. All right.
Which fight will likely give us a number one contender for 125? Cap Perez or Royval versus Nicolau?
Oh, here you go. It's going to Jose. I know everyone loves Manel Cop. The answer is Brandon Royval and Mateus Nicolau, because Mateus Nicolau should have already had the title shot if they weren't doing the quadrology or fourth fight or whatever you want to say. Like other flyweights say that. Like even like Makayev says it. Brandon Moreno says it. Like, this isn't a question. This is a question of who's next after Pantoja and Nicolau. That's the real question. If Mateus Nicolau wins, that's the answer. If he loses, then Brandon Royval gets it, because Brandon Royval fought Brandon Moreno and it was a screwy finish because his arm popped out of its socket like 60 seconds into the fight. I love Cop. I love Perez. That's not the fight for number one contender. It's just not. Nicolau and Royval all day.
I agree. AK, this is you have predicted it's the year of the raw dog, so I guess you would agree, right?
Yeah, I don't know if Royval, if he beats Nicolau necessarily, he might still be one. I would hope he would get a title shot, but he might still be one away. But yes, this does go with my plan, with my prediction of this being the year of the Brandon Royval, and so I agree with that. I agree with Jose.
Let's also not forget that when Brandon Royval fought Brandon Moreno, the stakes were the loser changes their name to Brendan. So we have to call him accordingly.
We should respect that. Okay.
Yeah, we should respect it. Brendan Royval.
Both are really good fights, though.
Mm-hmm. Love both fights. Also, Mateus Nicolau beat Manel Cop. Let's not forget that.
The judges say that, but we all
and I understand that everyone on the site, wanted to give Manel Cop a UFC title shot before he even got to the UFC. Still lost to Mateus Nicolau.
Not this guy, by the way. Hey, I'm with you, Jose.
Neither did I.
I don't believe in Japanese MMA, as people know. I'm an American MMA only for me, sir. So I was like, Manel Cop.
USA.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I view MMA. I'm like, okay, but has he done it in the octagon, Casey? Has he done it in the octagon? That's my question.
10-round opening rounds in a ring? What is this poppycock?
Yeah. I need 8 walls.
You can wear. Why are they wearing shoes in there? Poppycock, I said.
What is this?
Throw a head kick with the shoes. Oh wait, you can't? What are these rules? Silly.
Off the rails.
Although we have an ongoing poll, who wins the UFC San Antonio main event. I'll read the results at the end of the questions. I'm a little surprised. I'm pretty surprised by what I'm seeing, I think.
What is this question? Is my bookshelf real? Of course it's real.
Yeah.
Right. People,
those Helwani
fake.
What do you think I am? You think I'm a former ESPN journalist that came back to MMA fighting and does his interviews in his garage with a fake bookshelf? Of course this is real.
Hey,
and I've read every single one.
That's why people are asking. They don't know how to trust us.
That's not even shots fired. Just a lot of people. I remember when Ariel did an interview, and then it was like there was an angle, and like I knew, like I thought it was pretty obvious. It was like kind of a backdrop. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like people were like, "Oh, it's not a backdrop." I'm like, who cares? But yes, my bookshelf is real, and I've read every book on here.
Could the winner of Holly Holm versus Yana Santos get a title shot? To me, women's bantamweight is wide open, and Amanda hasn't been booked at 135 or 145 since beating Juliana last fall. Yes. I think this is a pretty easy way to end. I think there's only one way to answer this question, but AK, go ahead.
I mean, yes, it's women's bantamweight. So there's no depth to this division. There's no depth. Everyone is one fight away. Everyone is one fight away from fighting Amanda Nunes. It's just a matter of when Amanda Nunes decides to come back from this again, and no one needs to rush her. She's done everything. She has nothing to do but pick up wins.
No, they need to rush her. She's the champion.
Her legacy. I'm saying she doesn't need to rush herself. Her legacy is secure. They could strip her if they want to rush her. The title, okay, and I'm her. I'm just like, okay, strip the titles. I don't care. Like, it would suck because assuming she doesn't want to fight anymore. It does suck to lose the titles because then actually that wouldn't matter because she'd come back and immediately get a title shot anyway. So, she should take her time. But whenever she comes back, it's pretty much just going to be they're going to find some bantamweight coming off a win with a little bit of name value. In this case, again, could be Holly Holm, could be Yana Santos. I could have, I don't know, Haley Cowan and Tamiris Vidal if that fight had gone through Priza for Tamiris Vidal. Hopefully she's okay. I know she wasn't able to fight. And Haley Cowan, Priza for her as well to even get her UFC debut in the books. Second time in like a month that she's had her debut canceled. But yeah, this is a pretty firm yes. that's why this is a co-main event. It was almost, I think Holly was saying before the Marlon Vera and Cory got moved here, I think it was going to be the main event, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So there you go. Yeah, this big title implications here.
I think if Irene wins, it's a pretty big no-brainer. They're going to want the Mexican woman to fight for the title.
Also winning now, yeah.
That's also a fresh matchup. I guess it would depend on if Irene versus Raquel Pennington. If I remember correctly, is that the fight that's out?
If it happens, that fight was never done.
But which end? Do we have any idea? Is Aldana injured? I have no idea.
No, it was on like neither end. It was just like, hey, because we've talked about this before. The one of like the early ongoing thoughts about this card in particular was there was talks about doing like an all women's card or like a women's card. So, and because they didn't have a main event, this was something that was kind of brought up, but it never got past like the initial, hey, what do you think about fighting this person on this date? It's literally as far as it went. And then it was reported that it was going to happen and it never got past that point. So maybe that's the direction they go. But I feel like Holly Holm is never out of these conversations, like ever.
Correct.
Even though she probably should be with Amanda being the champion. And I just think Raquel and Aldana are both they should be firmly above both of these women. Yana Santos has zero chance of getting a title fight if she wins this one.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that at all.
I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about saying that. I feel pretty good.
This is women's bantamweight. You don't know. Juliana Pena, who did she beat to get the title shot? She beat who did she beat? She beat
Jermaine Duranami, right?
No one. She lost to Jermaine Duranami, and they got a title shot.
Oh, she got submitted by Jermaine Duranami. Oh, Sarah.
She beat Sarah McMahon.
What are we talking about here?
And we did not think that her being Sarah McMahon would get her a title shot, and here we are. So
that's what I mean. Like, we say all this all the time, but then we go, oh, okay, whatever.
Juliana got a title shot because she went and did media and just went scorched earth on everybody. So that helped get her over when we were looking for exactly. But at least there's like a couple of people in play here. Raquel Pennington's on a roll. Aldana, with everything happening with the champions right now, she makes a lot of sense. I don't think either of these women make sense for a title fight if they win. So
real quick, why are we so anti Holly Holm not rematching Nunes? When we kind of said we suggested Pennington may get a rematch with Nunes.
I'm anti everyone in this division getting a shot against Nunes, so that's not it's not against Holly Holm specifically.
I'm not saying Raquel gets the fight right now. But I think her and Aldana are both ahead of both of these women.
I think Aldana is. I don't think Pennington is. I think Pennington. Whatever.
It's tough because we say that, but if Ketlen Vieira had beaten Raquel Pennington, that would have been the fight, and then Raquel Pennington beat her. So Raquel Pennington just keeps knocking off these fighters that are supposed to fight for the title next. So at some point,
5 in a row.
Yeah.
And by the way, Mike, I will say. We say Holly Holm was closer, but Yana Santos beat Ketlen Vieira. The MMA math come into play here. Yana Santos beat Ketlen Vieira pretty convincingly too. Holly Holm lost that, somewhat. I would say some would say controversial. I didn't think it was that controversial.
But
it was close. It was close, that's for sure. And then the loss to Aldana, who obviously should be ahead of Santos. Aldana did miss weight in that fight. She missed weight pretty badly. So I don't know. I mean, it still counts. It still counts a loss for Yana Santos. But that's how close Yana Santos is. Like, she's really not out of the picture. She beats Holly Holm. That's a big name. I mean,
that's true.
She could easily get that title shot.
Irene's last bantamweight fight was against Holly Holm. Since then, it's been just catchweights for days.
But her last catchweight wasn't her on her.
And the one before that, it was.
Yeah, but we'll give her that one. She gets one. I mean, freaking yeah. It's women's bantamweight. UFC gave up on that division such a long time ago.
Technically, looking back, she's only had 3 bantamweight fights since 2019. It's been all catchweights.
If Santos wins, she fights Aldana. If Aldana doesn't get the title shot, and you got to do Raquel Pennington versus Juliana Pena. Like, what are we doing here? Those two hate each other. There's heat on it. What are we doing?
But that would be such a quick run back for Aldana. I guess you could justify it by the fact that Aldana missed weight, but I don't know if they run it back so soon. Right?
I wouldn't mind seeing Holm Pennington rematch because that was Holm's UFC debut.
Oh,
it was very cool.
No, that'll be their no, that'll be their third fight.
That'll be the third fight. Holly Holm is 2-0 already.
I forgot the second one then.
Exactly, because the second fight was ass in the co-main event of Conor and Cowboy. Do you remember? We were both there, and Dana White was just shitting on that fight, and Holly was like 10 feet away from him.
This division is
exactly.
You know what? I do remember, but it's like in that repressed memory part of my brain. And I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna start shaking now. You're right. I apologize. I'm gonna delete that part out of the podcast.
It's fine. No. This is what bantamweight does to people. This is what women's.
I kind of want to see. I kind of want to see. I would like to see Holm Aldana run it back. I know it was a while ago, and
it was
Holly looked incredible in that fight.
And Aldana had an injury.
She did. No, it was not injury. It wasn't injury. Aldana was just riddled with COVID. This wasn't like the common cold COVID. This was she couldn't walk up the stairs without getting tired. It was bad.
Yeah. Who knows? See, we just made this division more interesting than it's been in 2 years.
Okay, you guys, none of you were on the ranking show this week.
That's true.
I, for some reason, somehow got us to talk about women's bantamweight for like 25, 30 minutes on that show. I have spent way more time talking about women's bantamweight this week than anyone has, any media member has in the last 12 months. I don't know what's happening to me. I think it's gotten to the point I actually love the division. I think I've come back around to it. All I'll say is Josiane Nunes, drop back down to 135. Save us. Please, save us.
And hopefully,
save us, Josiane Nunes.
Yeah, and look, Julia Avila could be back this year. Yes. So that's somebody who was ranked before she left for a little while to have a child.
Create human life.
Yeah, so she's going to come back this year as well. So, I mean, look, this could be I don't know if it'll get back to the heyday of what this division once was all these years ago, but maybe 2023 is the year of the comeback for the women's bantamweight division. We shall see.
Just book Nunes Aldana. Fresh fight. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm cool if they just do that right now. Yeah. All right, one more question. Give us the best one.
Best one.
Or whatever.
Also, for those asking, because I see you in the comment section, my hair is purple, not blue.
Yes.
Lilac, if you want to be more specific, because I know people will love that in the comments.
We're good. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we can top that line right there. All right, hit the music.
All right, here we go.
Oh, hold on. The poll, guys.
The poll.
Let me end the poll properly, please.
Hit the music, and AK will read the poll.
So first off, let's go to Topology here. Very close, 51%. 51% Sandhagen, 49% Vera.
Wow.
And apparently Cheeto a slight underdog? So I haven't looked at DraftKings, but Mike, does that sound right? Slight underdog? He is a dog.
Yep, plus 140.
Our YouTube poll, 61% picking Cheeto Vera. So never tell these guys the odds because they do not care about them. 51% Cheeto. He ain't an underdog on the MMA Fighting YouTubes, I'll tell you that much.
Well, I'll tell you who's going to win that fight. All of us are going to win that fight because we get to watch it.
America.
We get to watch it, and I can't freaking wait. And we'll talk more about this. We'll answer more of your questions tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, because the prelim start time has got bumped back a half an hour because we lost 2 fights. And I think this is going to be a fun watch, folks. It's not the most star-studded card, but I think it's going to be a fun watch. I think we're going to get a lot of finishes, and we'll have a lot to talk about coming out of it. But we'll see you then. For AK, for Casey, for Jose, and the lilac hair, I am Mike Heck. Thank you for watching and listening. Good night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.